Ciao, hi, hey guys. I'm just going to check if I'm live on Facebook as well. I was just about to say, come on, Facebook's letting me do it, then it uploaded. I'm not the most patient. But anyway, ciao, hi, hey guys, it's your boy MKSA back in another video, and welcome to the third and penultimate part of how Juventus could perhaps change to learn from its past mistakes, like the Calciopoli scandal and things like that, and improve, especially at youth level. These are pointers number 21 to 30, as per usual, for part 3. Maybe in the future one day I'll mix it up or whatever. But anywho, I'll try not to waffle too much. But it is slightly a fair bit behind schedule because this is part 3, not even part 4, and it's already 1 in the morning here. So I'll probably have to do part 1 tomorrow if I can, or ASAP basically. All being well, I'd love to have my own creative room where I could just focus on stuff. Although today, I've got to admit, it's on me, no one disturbed me or anything like that. I'm only distracting myself, so I can't blame anyone else for once. Anyway, here goes. Anyway, so here goes. So these are pointers number 21 to 30. Sorry if I said number 11 to 20. I meant 21 to 30. So here goes. So number 21. I normally say 21 again. I'd love for people to find out the history of Juventus, which I mentioned before, and also I'd love to see how Italian teams like Juventus can connect together with the diaspora. For instance, getting Italian entrepreneurs, those of it from the diaspora around the world, so those of Italian descent, entrepreneurs of Italian descent around the world, and whatnot, to support football development in Italy. Like that could be a way to connect with their roots. So the diaspora could fund like soccer pitches, academies, and things like that. And also, Italian teams like Juventus could go and train in Brazil, Argentina, Canada, America, and elsewhere. Perhaps, ideally, I'd love to see that, and also in Australasia, all over the world, to have academies all over the world, and train together. But I dream that would especially benefit Italian football more generally, including especially the national team. And maybe they could bring back some of their glory days. Although that does bring me to a point I was thinking of that I'm glad I remembered, but sometimes I forget things. I've been worrying recently, like I'm forgetting things, losing my train of thought and things like that, even more than usual. I think recently I'm being stressed, so it's been a bit worrying. But I'd love to see. Sorry, I forgot to say I suppose I could have said either in point number 3 or 4 in part 1, of course, about how I would love to see. I'd love to see Milan create a scary team. So I'm thinking of 3 specific teams in Italy. 3 Italian club teams: Milan, Roma, and Juventus, as well as Italian football more generally. But those 3 specifically, but also all the other Italian teams. So I thought I could have mentioned it in point number 4. I could have, should have, would have, or point number 3. Again, could have, should have, or would have, could have, should have, would have, or whatever. But I was thinking, like, I'd love for AC Milan, to create a scary team. I need to get so many great players, and maybe Juventus could be a feeder club. I've jumped ahead of myself. But for Roma to create the new Giallorossi Galacticos, or New Real Madrid, Roma to be New Real Madrid, i.e. to have all the best possible players in the world. But I'd love for Roma to be the New Real Madrid, the Giallorossi Galacticos. The only difference is like having a better goalkeeper and especially a better defence. So being strong in all areas of the pitch. Whereas Real Madrid are said to be, we were called the Galacticos, signing so many great players. But they were said to be every year or so they sign great players, and I suppose they still do. Players like Zidane, Zizou, Ronaldinho, R9, the old Ronaldo, Kaká, and players like that from around the world. But they were said to buy more attacking players, like attacking midfielders and strikers and whatnot. Whereas with Roma, I'd love for them to not only have that, but also the best possible goalkeepers and defenders, but also to have the best 11 or even 22 players, like squad players. So not just have the best team, but also the best squad as well. So 2 of the best goalkeepers, 2 of the best right backs, left backs, wing backs, centre backs, wing backs, wingers and midfielders and strikers. So yeah, as I say, I'd love to see Milan, AC Milan that is, Milan for sure, having the best, having a great scary team to put fear into the opposition, given their nickname, and then Roma to be the new Real Madrid, the Generosity Galacticos, and for Juventus to be the given its name to focus more on youth. So fitting for their name, which I dream will benefit the Italian national team, which I talked about before. And once again, talking about 21 again, to recap, I said in point number 17, I think, and then a few other points. I'd love for Juventus to have so many different academies. I don't know if I explained it in that much detail, but to have so many great academies that could help to produce the next Messi, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Zizou, Zidane, Georgie Best, Pele, and all those great players, the next version of those in the future, preferably ASAP, to be produced in Italy, especially in Turin for Juventus, or especially by Juventus. And again, for them to have as many academies as possible. I know I mentioned, before I move on to point number 22, I'll say I know I mentioned about how there could be different pitches where players practice skills. They could watch them on YouTube and then say, let's go and practice those. So older players or their parents could go with them and try to train more, even coaches and their parents and others, to see, hopefully in the safest environment possible, to try different skills and tricks and see which one works. So to be not a one-trick pony, but a field of ponies, or whatever, trick ponies or whatever. But yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think we're going to move on to point number 22. So in the future, I suppose I'm not the most patient, as you can probably tell, when I'm waiting for Facebook or YouTube to upload, and they take a bit of time. I'm like, oh, come on. But I'm very impatient, I've got to admit. But I love for that to happen ASAP. It is for, I suppose I could have said point number 21, but I'm not saying moved on. But and I just thought this, but it is for because I think I look Italian, and as I mentioned before, yeah, 21 again, but I'm mentioning it in point 22 now, but also a nostalgic sort of thing, like bringing the glory days back to Italian football. I remember AC Milan used to be a really great team, and even Juventus and so many different Italian teams used to do really well, and I'd love to see them go back to those glory days. But with Juventus specifically, I'd love for them. Maybe they could say we've won so many trophies, but now we are proud to produce and provide so many great players for the Italian national team. So even if we don't win as Serie A's or Champions Leagues or whatever, we now provide those great players, and they might well win like Barcelona. They've had good young players, but I suppose if my plan worked and my dream worked, I guess in this case Juventus would provide many great players and therefore be a feeder club for Milan and especially for Roma, and in particular for the national team, most of all, closely followed by Roma and Milan. AC Milan, of course, I would say. And number 23, I'd love to see as many, and I suppose this is probably the key point, I guess, but I'd love to see as many, although I think it would be very good to install good values in the youth, like teaching them about charity, staying out of trouble with the law, non-violence, cooperation, building bridges, tackling violence and wars and things like that through football, peace through football, and that kind of thing, peace and love through football, and all those positive things, diversity and that kind of thing. Arguably positive things. I'd say building bridges and whatnot, representing diversity as it's black and white, and it's as they play in black and white, and also it could be Juventus, but also working with Arabs and others. So yeah, people of all backgrounds, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, black, white, Asian, much like me and whatnot. Maybe even mixed race families and that kind of thing, interracial families or whatever. But yeah, diverse families, diverse people, diverse groups and whatnot getting to play football at Juventus. And I'd love for them to have as many academies as possible so they can give as many opportunities for young people, especially in Italy, but also around the world, including in developing nations, as possible. I mean, normally I think you have a certain amount of academy places, but maybe they could offer sort of unlimited places, or certainly as many as possible. But yeah, I almost forgot to say my point. But yeah, I'd love to see as many sponsors of those pitches as possible. So maybe if the Italian government, local politicians, local and national politicians, councillors, businesses, people in the diaspora, as say FIFA, UEFA, just smiling at my cat there, although he's got really scary eyes at night time. Side note. Another thing that I love for Juventus to support animal rights, children's rights, tackling poverty, and all those sorts of things. For its foundation or whatever, I'm sure it's got a foundation or a great one or whatever. I know I made a video a while back. Someone said you should do more research, but I'm not too good at that. But I take too much on, and never seem to get around to it. But anyway, always something more to do, I guess, and that is the positive side of it, because then hopefully I won't get too bored, because I'll always have new goals to work on. But anyway, as I look for like Qatar, UAE, Dubai, the PIF, Saudi Arabia itself, the Italian government, politicians, FIFA itself, UEFA itself, maybe even charities and UEFA, NGOs, migrant and refugee charities and whatnot, and all sorts of different sponsors really. I know there are rules on, I'm trying to finish one point at a time, but I'll try and get to the point, but I know there are rules on like multi-club ownership, so you can't own like shares in Juventus, another team that plays in the same league as far as I'm aware, or even like in the same competition in Europe or whatever. But I think that in this case, hopefully, because it's sponsoring like football pitches for the youth, hopefully they'll find ways around it. And the rules may have changed, I'm not sure, but yeah, hopefully. So even companies that invest in other teams could still, even if they don't have shares in Juventus, they could still fund soccer pitches. So let's say Qatar might say, we'll sponsor pitches for you to help, like academies for you to help produce the next Messi. Again, preferably from Italy itself, Italian, but also again having those diasporas, those academies all over the world. Sorry, but yeah, working with the diaspora and as many investors as possible, basically, sovereign wealth funds, hedge funds, banks, and any other businesses. Even those people speak to impediments, whatever. Sorry, that was my late attempt at humour. But yeah, as many sponsors as possible sponsoring those pictures, and as many of them as possible, academies and whatnot. Number 24. So yeah, I'd love to see that worldwide. I'd say like Arabs, I suppose I look like an Arab, I guess, or Turk or whatever, but or people or both or whatever. But yeah, I'd love to see Juventus having sponsors to sponsor academies to develop young players, especially Italian ones, preferably. Not solely Italians, I'll say, but more, especially and more in particular Italian players. But they could still produce great players in Oman or Dubai or Ghana or Kenya or America or Africa, all over the world. But I'd especially love to see more Italian players being developed, of course, as a fan of Italian football more generally. Someone asked me what my favourite club is or whatever, and I've mentioned before, but I'll mention it again. But I'd love to see, for those who may not have heard those videos in the past, for those who haven't seen or heard those videos in the past, my favourite sports team is the Italian national team, closely followed by Roma, and then AC Milan, and then all the other Italian teams put together, and then Celtic, and then I suppose Indian cricket or whatever, and hockey and that kind of thing. Although I'm not really into those sports, but I do like sport India. But anyway, moving on. As I say, I'd love to see academies all over the world, but especially in Italy itself, and any sort of legal funding the club can get, like whether they can get funding from local governments, the national government, Italian businesses, local businesses, or whatnot, and whatever legal sources of funding they can get. Number 25, I hope they can host as many events and pitches as possible. Again, I hope they'll have as many places for academies as possible. I suppose I could say point 24 due to my patterns, but I should have, I forgot, to be fair. But to be honest with you, but I know they have the Juventus Academy World Cup. I have a strange sort of pattern because I think of like 24 hours in a day. For some reason, that reminds me of like global or international or whatever. But I forgot to mention at that point. But they could host like Mediterranean Cups, Republic Cups, Tricolor Cups, and things like that. I know they have. I know they have the Academy World Cups from academies all over the world. So I hope they will expand that, and that will continue to help them. But yeah, especially in Italy in particular, I'd love to see them develop that and work with the national team, maybe practice with the national team a bit more at youth level. And give opportunities for younger players to play against older players, so they learn from them and that kind of thing as much as possible. Maybe even like, for instance, Juventus is under 6 could play the Italian national team at under 7 level, so they're younger, but they have to compete, which will hopefully improve them. If that makes sense. Number 26. Again, hopefully they'll learn from the Calciopoli scandal and give back to the community and tackle justice, Juventus for justice, J for J, which I think would be quite fitting irony, as I said before. Number 27. I hope they'll acknowledge the those who sponsor youth academies in all possible ways. I talk about like the Walk of Fame on YouTube and TikTok and on websites and things like that. So acknowledge them in all possible ways and like provide awards and rewards as well for sponsoring soccer pitches, academies or whatever, and that kind of thing. So that will encourage more to do so as part of their PR and that kind of thing, and they can put their brand out there and say they're proud to sponsor Juventus's the next Messi Academy, and they could host events like the next Messi, so they can ask people in Turin, like, are you the next Messi or whatever, and offer a chance to go to the Juventus academies to try those skills and see, come up with the best skills and things like the next Ronaldo, the 2 Ronnies and that kind of thing, George Best, Pele and that kind of thing. So looking at ways to produce those players in Turin and across Italy, especially. Number 28. And once again, I hope they can turn that negative situation of the Calciopoli scandal into a positive, and I hope Juventus fans will somehow, I hope I can sort of sell the idea and they'll be happy to represent the national team and help them to develop youth, even if that means that those players got sold on to Milan and or especially Roma. They can say, oh, because they were produced by us, by the club, we helped to create those great players, and the national team is therefore benefiting hopefully in the future. So hopefully they can help the national team to win the World Cups, which I hope the Italian teams can do more generally. I'd love to see the FIGC, Italian FA, Serie A, those who run the Coppa Italia and the Super Cup, all these different events, and like schools and parks and parents, teachers and whatnot, encouraging football in Italy. So everyone to work together in Italy, like the whole country, the whole nation to come together for football development in Italy, and hopefully again work with the diaspora. Number 29. I'd love to, as I say, I'd love to. I said before, like I'd love to go on my bucket list. I'd love to go and coach and share my ideas and strategies, which hopefully would benefit Italian teams, and look at all the possible ways to fundraise. If there was like NEWVentus, millionaires and billionaires networks, even trillionaires networks in the future, I'd love for them to fund football pitches. If I could find those groups, what I call networks, which I call millionaires groups, for millionaires, billionaires, and possibly trillionaires in the future, respectively, and I got 10% of that, I'd love to donate a certain amount to youth academies for Juventus, basically for the club. I'd love to look into all the possible, I'd say legal ways, most importantly, where they can acquire sponsorship and investment into youth academies and that kind of thing. And I'd love to go, almost again, for God's sake, with my fellow Anglo-Indians and other Eurasians, especially, and also Northwest people, to coach soccer in and practice and play football, soccer, whatever you call it, in Turin and across Italy, and help to develop youth development in Italy, including with Juventus. And number 30, if I only had a money-making machine or something like that, legally producing money, that'd be pretty cool. Like if I could be involved in QE or something like that. But I thought I said it one, but anyway.